Hello, everyone. This is Janet Edmondson, and I want to welcome you to our webinar tonight on how to boost your immune system. I'm so glad you took the time tonight to join us. I think we're going to probably go about 45 minutes if you want to watch your time. So as we get started and we're waiting for people to join us, let me just do a few announcements. First of all, I want to remind you of the next webinar that I'll be doing, another free webinar in September on how to stop worrying. If you're like me, this is something that you might struggle with from time to time. So we'll be sending a follow-up email probably sometime tomorrow, and watch for that follow-up, and that'll have a link for you to register for this new webinar coming up. And even if that date's not going to work for you, if you're not sure it's going to work for you or not, please sign up, because we will be recording it. And if you're signed up, you will get the link to the recording as well. Again, before we get started, I want to let you know about my book, Finding Meaning with Charles. It's available on my website at affirmyourself.com, or available through Amazon, or you can get it from your local bookstore. I just wanted to mention, if you wanted the audio book that I read and recorded professionally, you need to type in Amazon MP3 and then Finding Me with Charles, and that should bring up the audiobook version. For some reason, when you just type in the title, the audiobook doesn't come up. Let me also mention that you are free to ask me questions. There is a box to your lower right panel where you've got something that says questions, and you just type that and hit send, and that'll come to me, and we'll address those questions at the end of the webinar. Now let me quickly tell you a little bit about my background. If you participated in our webinars before, you know that I took care of my husband, Charles, while he faced a neurological disease. And it was called cortical basal degeneration, which is an atypical Parkinsonian disorder. He got his first symptoms at age 45 and died at age 50, and that was in the year 2000. I am also the past chair of the board of directors for Cure PSP, and I've been a support group leader in one form or another. I now do 3 groups, but in one form or another for about 20 years. But most important for today's webinar is my career and educational experience, since we're going to be talking about something a little bit scientific. I have an undergraduate degree in health and physical education, and I have a Master's of Education degree from Georgia State University in exercise science. I have worked in the worksite health promotion field for over 30 years. In that role, I have developed and taught many health and wellness programs like stress management, nutrition, physical activity, etc. So that's a little bit about my educational background. I live now in South Portland, Maine. In this webinar, we are looking at how we as caregivers can boost our immune system. I love this quote from Jon Kabat-Zinn, a popular author and expert on meditation. He says, quote, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf," end quote. Now, thinking about COVID-19 still surging in much of the US, we're still in the middle of waves that are scary, and they're knocking us around. Then add on to that you are caring for a loved one with the challenges of whatever disease that is. That's adding to the turbulence of these waves. For COVID-19, it's helpful and comforting to know that we can learn to surf these waves through adopting some healthy habits and hopefully getting the vaccine, which I hope some of you have already started to get. Boosting our immunity is also important as we think about things like the common cold, flu, and even cancers. And these health concerns will be with us even when the coronavirus pandemic calms down. So what we learned tonight's important, really for our lifetime. Let's look at what our immune system is. So your immune system is very much like your own personal army. It guards your body against attacks from invaders, things like bacteria, fungi, and viruses, defending against infections, and several kinds of cancer. And it's smart too, often remembering certain infections so it's ready for the next time that one attacks. So it figures it out, remembers, and it's ready to attack. What I'd like to do right now is go over a few components of our immune system. First, let's start with inflammation. Inflammation is the basic mechanism within the body that heals and repairs tissue after injury. Inflammation brings blood to the area, and that also attracts the white blood cells. We're going to describe those in a little bit. Inflammation also causes a fever, which makes it harder for pathogens like viruses and bacteria to live. And a fever causes the immune system to make more white blood cells, which is good. You've seen inflammation when you've had a cut on your skin and the area gets red, swollen, warm, it hurts. Just know that underneath those symptoms is a very complex process, and it's absolutely necessary for the health of our body. When damaged tissues are healed, then the inflammation process stops. Now, inflammation, okay, I'm hearing someone saying that they're not getting the audio, but I'm assuming since it's only one person that everybody else is. Could someone please type in the question box and let me know that you are hearing me? I'll keep an eye out. Thank you. Inflammation also happens when we are hit by a virus like COVID-19. And that is a good thing for the most part. Great, thank you guys. However, in more rarer cases, when the body goes too far with the inflammation process, so it's like overdoing it, it can then be a problem. So this is like what we're seeing with some small children who are getting exposed to COVID-19. They're getting multi-system inflammatory syndrome. You've probably heard about that on the television. That process happens also where there's too much of immune response to autoimmune diseases like fibromyalgia, lupus, MS, and rheumatoid arthritis. So there's such a balance that's needed here is kind of the big point. Thank you all for letting me know you can hear me. That's terrific. The next component of our immune system is our skin. You may not have thought about that as part of the immune system, but our skin is a great protector for us from many bacteria, molds, toxins, and other agents that come from outside the body. When they land on the skin, oftentimes they quickly die. There are also specialized cells in the nose, the mouth, and other points of entry inside our bodies that kill the invaders, as well as mucus, whose job is to entrap the invaders. So no wonder we get a runny nose when we get a respiratory illness, right? That mucus is there to try to trap those viruses that's coming in. Another component to the immune system is the lymph system, and it runs through the body in a similar way that the blood vessels do, but it's a separate system. However, the lymph system does not have a circulatory system. It doesn't have a heart which pumps to get things moving. The way that the lymph system works is the fluid in the system is moved by being pushed by lymph fluid coming into the system and goes out of the body, moving by the muscles moving and compressing on it. That's why it's suggested by some physicians to move or walk when you're sick to help move the invaders out. The lymph system is going to clear out a lot of those invaders. Now, we have known, many of you have known growing up, when you get those swollen lymph nodes in your neck, right? You got lymph nodes all over your body, but when they get swollen, they're infected. And that indicates an infection. Now, when working optimally, another important component of your immune system are the T cells. They identify foreign invaders. While your immune system is effective against many disease-causing germs and viruses, it requires time to familiarize itself with the enemy. So antigens, you may have heard that word, antigens in the T cells can tell who the good cells are and which cells are the invaders. See, they can identify. One type of T cell is called the killer cell, which actually destroys the infected cell. Another type of T cell is called the helper cell, and it coordinates. It's like the general. It coordinates the attack and gets the successful killer cells to multiply, the good guys to multiply, so they can do more work. The T cells, all of them, there's more than just these two killer and helper cells, again, are like that army inside our bodies. They're mounting the attack. And yet, another component of our immune system are our antibodies. These antibodies are produced by the white blood cells. Now you can see how important these white blood cells. Bone marrow creates new red and white blood cells. That's where they come from. And the antibodies in these white blood cells, their job is to bind to the toxin or foreign substance and disable them, preventing them from attaching to new cells. The white blood cells are one of the most important parts of the immune system. And then there's many, many more parts of the immune system. This is just a simplified summary of that complex system. It's not all-inclusive. I hope, though, that this explanation gives you a bit of an idea of what is happening within our bodies to protect ourselves from outside enemies and how complex this whole system is. But here's the trick with how much impact we can have, or maybe that we should have, with boosting the immune system. According to Michael Stornbach, professor of microbiology at Harvard Medical School, the immune system, as we've already mentioned, all those things we talked about, is a very finely tuned machine where all the parts are working to maintain a defense against foreign invaders, but not to be too reactive, right? The immune system, as we've mentioned, has many moving parts. It is consistently trying to keep everything in balance. So in thinking about how to boost our immune system, which is the topic of this webinar, the Harvard Medical School throws out some cautions. On the whole, first of all, our immune system does a remarkable job of defending us against disease-causing microorganisms. But there is still a lot the science doesn't really know about the intricacies and interconnectedness of the immune system. We know a lot, but we don't know it all. For now, there are no scientifically proven direct links between lifestyle, the choices that you make, and enhanced immune function. No direct links. However, you've noticed probably on store shelves and on TV advertisements, it's all loaded with products that claim to boost your immune system. But if we were to do that, which immune cells would we try to increase? Would we throw off the balance and harmony your immune system needs to work efficiently? No one knows the answer to this right now. So in the meantime, the caution from the Harvard Medical School, they recommend that general healthy living strategies are a good way to start giving your immune system a boost. Instead of going after, oh, I want to improve this, or I want to add more of that. Developing a strong immune system while you're healthy can sustain your body as it familiarizes itself with the new viruses in the event you get sick. Now, I want to mention here some factors that reduce immune capacity. So according to that same Harvard Medical School publication, there are some factors that actually reduce our immune capacity, which isn't good. It just is, but it's not great. One is age. And I know many of you who are caregivers, you are over 65. As we age, our immune response capability becomes reduced, which in turn contributes to more infections and more cancer. Some research suggests that this might be because T cell production decreases. This leaves fewer T cells to fight off infection. We've already heard how important they are, right? Another scientific theory is that the bone marrow may become less efficient at producing those red and white blood cells that help make up our immune system. Anyway, if you're over 65, you may notice that when you go for the flu shot, you actually get the booster flu shot. You get the extra one over the regular one. And that's because seniors can have reduced immune response to vaccines as well. But the Harvard Business School publication, medical school publication, wanted you to know and to remember that even though seniors have a reduced immune response to vaccines, even at that, lower the rate of sickness and death compared to people with no vaccine. This would go for flu and the other vaccines, and especially too, you've heard the same thing probably, we'll see, I guess, with COVID. At least with COVID, they're saying that those over 65 are getting a good response to it. Another factor that reduces immune capacity is poor nutrition or a form of malnutrition. This is seen in elders in affluent countries like the US, and it may also be connected to reduced immune capacity. Older people tend to eat less and often have less variety in their diets, and that may be the culprit. The Harvard Medical School also cites that stress may be a factor that reduces immune capacity. And we're going to talk about stress in a little bit. They describe that stress is hard to measure in a research study, but researchers are actively looking at this potential link. Finally, let me mention extreme exercise and activity that may reduce one's response to infections. We're going to talk more later about healthy exercise that can be good for our health and our immunity. But what I'm talking about here is extreme exercises and activities, like potentially training for a marathon or an Ironman type activity, which because of its intensity over a period of time may negatively impact your immunity. So what can we do to make a difference? Well, these are some of the general healthy living strategies that we'll discuss tonight. And let's start with eat well. According to MD Anderson Cancer Center, like any engine, your body relies on the fuel you give it. If you eat the best possible foods, your body will try to repay you with increased energy and a stronger immune system. MD Anderson Cancer Center suggests that we focus on making 2/3 of each meal vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. 2/3 of the healthy stuff, right? And those foods, those vegetables, fruits, and whole grains will contain valuable antioxidants and phytochemicals, which your body uses to keep you healthy. Then they suggest that last third, 1/3 of your meals, be lean protein like chicken, fish, or plant proteins like beans or quinoa. AARP reports that Dr. Lin of the Center for Integrative Medicine at the Cleveland Clinic recommends that people focus on a Mediterranean style of eating, which means a diet. You guys probably know what the Mediterranean diet is. You can always Google it. It's rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains and healthy fats. These healthy fats are found in fatty fish, nuts, and olive oil. Quote from Dr. Lin, "This eating pattern is high in nutrients such as vitamin C, zinc, and other antioxidants shown to help reduce inflammation and fight infection," end quote. Adults ages 65 to 69 who followed a Mediterranean type of diet, along with taking some extra vitamin D supplements for a year, showed small increases in disease-fighting cells like the T cells, those important T cells, according to a 2018 study published in the Journals of frontiers in physiology. According to MD Anderson Cancer Center, the best bet is a balanced diet over time. They highlight that a healthy diet will include important elements such as foods that have vitamin C, A, E, as well as protein, zincs, and probiotics. They suggest that if you get these nutrients from food, you shouldn't need supplements. So let me tell you where you can get each of these. I think you may know, but let me go over them quickly. Vitamin C, that's going to be found in things like, of course, oranges, grapefruit, but also broccoli, strawberries, red bell peppers, tomato juice. Vitamin A, you're going to find, of course, in carrots, but also sweet potatoes, apricots, and spinach. Vitamin E, you're going to find in nuts and peanut butter. And zinc, you're going to find, you're going to find in meat, shellfish, beans and legumes, and nuts and seeds. One nutrient not on this chart is vitamin D, but it should be. We get vitamin D through the sun and a few other foods like fatty fish, that would be things like salmon and mackerel, as well as what is fortified in foods like how they fortified milk. Michael Starnbach, he's that professor we mentioned from Harvard Medical School, described an analysis of 25 studies, so it took 25 studies, which showed about a 20% lower risk of acute respiratory infection, tract infection in those who were given vitamin D. But the vitamin D had its biggest impact on people with low blood levels of vitamin D. Only about 5% of the American population has a low level of vitamin D, but those are the people that got the best benefit from a vitamin D supplement. You can find out if you have a deficiency in vitamin D with a blood test from your doctor. Some of you may have already had that. I am one of those, so I do take a vitamin D supplement. Now, in speaking about food and nutrition and cooking and caregiving, if you're a cook, maybe this is the time that you find a lot of relaxation in cooking meals. I am not a cook. So when my husband Charles was sick, I was kind of in trouble. We used to go out to eat a lot and eat leftovers, and Charles was the cook. So when Charles got sick, here's what I did. And it worked. It's not great, but it worked. I took frozen lean cuisines, and I also bought bags of those frozen mixed vegetables. And I would open up the lean cuisine, I'd stir in a bunch of the frozen mixed vegetables, and then do the microwaving and cooking it. And that gave me more vegetables, enough protein for sure, and what I needed and Charles needed in that simple way. So I thought I'd share that for those of you that aren't cooks and struggle with getting that nutrition. Now let's quickly talk about staying active. Just like a healthy diet, physical activity contributes to general good health and therefore a healthy immune system. Again, according to that Harvard Medical School publication, physical activity may contribute even more directly by promoting good circulation, which allows cells and substances of the immune system to move through the body freely and do their job efficiently. So if you want something that might be more of a direct impact on your immune system, get your body moving. According to Dr. Mark Moyad, Director of Prevention and Alternative Medicine at the University of Michigan Medical Center, being active also lowers stress hormones, which reduces your chances of getting sick. We're talking about cortisol. With the stress of caregiving, you can now see the benefit of physical activity, right? So physical activity can help reduce that bad hormone and keep our immune system working a little bit better. Research reported in the British Journal of Sports Medicine suggests that exercise effects may be directly related to virus fighting too. In a study of a little over 1,000 people that were surveyed, those who exercised at least 5 days a week had almost half the risk of coming down with the cold as those who were more sedentary. If they did get a cold, they reported less severe symptoms. However, as we've already mentioned, we want to keep our exercise in moderation. So many caregivers complain to me that they don't have time for exercise. That's one of the things they give up. And I totally get it. I actually end up giving it up for a little bit too while I tried to figure out how to make it fit in. I was going out and walking with Charles, and which was fine when he was still able to walk, but with this neurological disease, he got so slow. So it was not any really any exercise for me. So I want to talk now about maybe some easier ways to fit exercise in. One way to get some physical activity is take a walk with your loved one. Now, right now I'm in South Portland, Maine. We got a snowy night with lots of snowy streets. So it's not as easy, and it's not as easy to go to the gym anymore or to the track, inside track or whatever. But when the weather is good and you can get out, I encourage you to do that. And I did that regularly with Charles. This is a picture. We just take him out in the, in the wheelchair. Once he was in a wheelchair, and just walk up and down the neighborhood. And it was a great way to get some exercise and to stay connected to the neighbors as well. Many of us during COVID are expanding our home gyms. So if you have, think about using it. If you've got a treadmill or a bike or something, use it maybe before your loved one wakes up in the morning, or when your loved one takes a nap in the afternoon. Just find time, even if just for 10 minutes. Let me tell you, that all adds up. And you can find free exercise classes online. You can look in YouTube and just search for almost anything. There's jazzercise classes, and then everything up to just upper body hand weight workouts. So there's just about everything there. Much of it's free. Some of it is very good. And if you're looking for programs that your loved one can do, let's say your loved one is not capable of doing the regular exercise program, I encourage you to search in YouTube for Parkinson exercise, because there's a lot of YouTube videos on exercises you can do in the chair. So that can make it a little safer. No matter what, know that even a little exercise is better than none. So please try to fit in walking everywhere you can, taking the stairs, whatever, to increase your exercise and your total activity in the day. Now let's look at the impact of sleep. Sleep and immunity are closely tied. In fact, inadequate or poor quality sleep is linked to a higher susceptibility of sickness. In a study reported in the publication Sleep with 164 healthy adults, those who slept fewer than 6 hours a night were more likely to catch a cold than those who slept 6 hours or more each night. Seemed like 6 was the magic number there. The reason for that may be because lack of sleep decreases production of our killer T cells, which, remember, help fight those invaders. Also, when we're sleep deprived, our body produces stress hormones to keep us awake and alert, which can suppress our immune system. So during the recommended, they typically recommend 7 to 9 hours of sleep for adults. Our bodies wash away toxins, fortifies our immune system, and repairs cells and tissue. Now, my experience as a caregiver is that getting enough sleep can be nearly impossible. For about a year or more, Charles woke me up every hour on the hour almost. So I understand those of you who are struggling. But I just have to say, it's so vital to prioritize sleep and do the best you can to get the most sleep and the best quality of sleep as possible. Here are some tips for getting a better night's sleep. And by the way, my last webinar, some of you may have been on, was on this topic. But if you missed it, you can get a more in-depth discussion about sleep by checking it, the recording out. You can find it on YouTube. If you just search in the search bar on YouTube, search Janet Edmondson, and I'll show you later about my YouTube channel. And then if you scroll through those webinars, you'll see the one on sleep. But here are a few quick tips. To get better sleep, try to keep a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. That means even on weekends. Also, Keep your bedroom dark and cool. Your body will prepare for sleep if you relax before going to bed, like listening to music or reading a book. Getting sunshine during the day helps regulate the hormone melatonin, which is what we need to help fall asleep. So get out and see the sun. And daily activity has been shown to also help us sleep. If you're having trouble falling asleep or falling back to sleep when you wake up in the middle of the night, try things that will distract your brain. First of all, definitely take some deep breaths to fully relax all your muscles. And then some ways to distract yourself would be repeating lyrics to songs that you know, or saying a mantra like stop thinking on every inhale and exhale. I've been doing that one. I have to say it's about 75% working when I'm really stressed, and it's about 95% working when I'm just a little stressed. That stop thinking on my inhales and exhales. Finally, be cautious about sleep medications. To learn other techniques to help you sleep so you don't need to rely on medications, you can check out Google things about sleep. All of these other tips may get you back in and you can get off of those medications, and talk to your doctor about that. I have someone in one of my support groups who was on probably Ambien, one of those sleep meds, and she read a book on sleep and got off of those, did all these techniques, and she's a different person. She is a different person. She is so much more relaxed because she's getting good sleep. By the way, medications don't allow you to get really into deep sleep, so that can be a problem. The next topic I'd like to address is positivity. Interestingly, research has connected positive emotions to things like fewer colds. So Cohen and colleagues tested healthy volunteers aged 18 to 54 for their tendency to experience, whether they experience positive emotions, like being happy, pleased, and relaxed, or if their tendency was more towards negative emotions, like being anxious, hostile, and depressed. Then the researchers, actually using nasal drops, gave everybody the rhinovirus, which is the common cold. The volunteers were quarantined and monitored to see if they developed a cold and to what extent. What they found was that those who experienced positive emotions, who really had more of a positive sense to themselves, had a greater resistance to getting the common cold. Interesting, other studies show that other diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and some cancers may also be impacted in a good way by our positive emotions. Now, this is research by Sonia Limbersky. She looked at all the studies on happiness at the time, and she found that 10% of our impact on happiness came from external events. This would be like a hurricane, a death, probably COVID, things that we don't have control over. 10% of our happiness was impacted by that. 50% of our happiness was impacted by heredity, what we got from our parents. So some of you popped out of the womb more optimistic, some more pessimistic, and everybody else is somewhere in between. And this 50% is your baseline. You can't change the 50%. You can't change your heredity, right? You are who you are. You can't change the 10% external. But here's the good news. We can have 40% that we have control over, which is our attitude. So we can decide whether we want to be more optimistic and happier and bringing in more joy and peace and awe and beauty into our lives. It's a choice. So we can reframe our negative thoughts. So if you look at this picture, this picture has you noticing the dead tulips. But did you see that there's a sun there too, right? So reframing, shifting from the negative to the positive is something that can really help us get a positive outlook. We're not saying you can't be negative because, we all have struggles. We're going to go to the negative. just don't stay there. So our mindset matters when it comes to these things. It's a choice, as we said. So choose each day to flip negativity by asking yourself, one question that you can ask yourself is, how can I see this frustration from a positive point of view? So that's a great way to flip negativity. Ask yourself that. So here's an example. You know that everything takes longer getting your loved one ready in the morning to go to an appointment. And that can be totally frustrating. But to see it from a positive point of view, if you just stop to say, okay, how can I see this frustration from a positive point of view? You may say to yourself, it is frustrating, but at least I'm learning more patience. And I'm getting to practice patience, which most of us struggle with, right? Another way to flip negativity is to, especially when you're complaining, is to ask yourself, not what's going wrong, but ask yourself, what do you really want? What do you really want instead of what you don't want? What do you really want? So let me give you an example. Most of you would probably say, I'm overwhelmed. Well, being overwhelmed is what you don't want. It doesn't really get you to a solution. What gets you to a solution when you think about being overwhelmed is saying, what do I really want? Well, when I'm overwhelmed, what I really want is to make sure I'm prioritizing. So I'm getting the most important things done first. I want to make sure I'm getting rid of my time wasters so I have time to focus on the important things, et cetera, et cetera. So by doing that, you can actually have some actionable items to help you when you're overwhelmed. So let me share some ways that you can experience and enjoy more positive emotions in your life, no matter what your day is like. And I would say it's most important to proactively bring these on your bad days. And I know you have bad days because I certainly did too. So one way would be to express gratitude. When you wake up in the morning, think about who you can thank. If you're religious, you can thank the gods or whatever. If you've got people in your life that you really appreciate, you can thank them. You can go back in history to think about who made a difference in your life and send an email to them or a text. So express gratitude. Then look for the positives every day. Just be aware, have your antenna up when something good happens, especially again in a bad day, because I promise you there will be good things even in those bad days. One way to enhance that is at the end of the day, ask yourself, what went well today? And then think of at least 3 things. Dig deep. This is a good thing to do with your loved one if they can still talk and communicate with you. Look for those positives. And then you'll begin to see them more during the day after looking for what they were at night. And then savor the good. Once you start seeing those positives during the day, take a moment. Be calm. Savor it. I love to do that with the sunsets I can see out of my office window at night. And then laugh. Find lots of places to find humor. And if it's not happening every day, what I'd like you to do is, watch some comedy shows. Watch some funny YouTubes. Find ways to get some laugh in. And then finally, do a kind act for someone. These random acts of kindness, I know you're doing them every day with your care partner. But also, there might be lots of other ways that you can find ways to do kind acts, whether you're in the grocery store, the drugstore, or whatever. Once we get out of this COVID, we'll be able to do more of those, right? Along a similar line to adopting a positive attitude is to manage stress. That's the next tip I want to go over. I know being a caregiver is extremely stressful. Some of us don't even realize how stressed we are until after our loved one dies. That was certainly true for me. And when stress is chronic, like the number of years that you've been carrying, that impact just multiplies and gets worse and worse. With chronic stress, your body produces greater levels of that stress hormone cortisol, which can, as we said, suppress your immune system. And there are studies also to show this. And I think as we're going through the pandemic, that's just added another layer of stress that you all know. We're worried, are we going to get it? Is our loved one going to get it now that we've got especially these variants out there? Some of us are struggling to get the vaccine scheduled. That's been stressful. We've been isolated, which usually having social connections is a way that we manage stress. That isn't always available to us now. So I know that stress really did me in by the time Charles died. After he died, I got shingles, and it's not fun. But my guess is that the stress of caring for Charles with that lack of sleep were the two factors that weakened my immune system, making me susceptible for these shingles. And this was back in 2000. So this is before the shingles vaccine came out. So here are some tips to manage stress. First of all, you can't avoid stress in your life, and you really don't want to. We actually need some to thrive. It's when it gets to be chronic and too much. There was a study in the 2012 Annals of Internal Medicine that looked at adults 50 and older and found that those who either did daily exercise routine or performed mindfulness meditation were less likely to get sick with a respiratory illness than the control group. Here's a couple of things you can try. So exercise is one. Mindfulness meditation. I am not a meditator, I just have to admit to you, but I know some people really like it and it really helps. One thing I've learned about was loving kindness meditation from Barbara Fredrickson, a research psychologist. Let me explain how this goes. You would say, you'd get in that comfortable position, take some deep breaths, etc. And then you'd say, may I be happy? May I be safe? May I be healthy? May I be at peace? And then just repeat that over and over and over. You can also do this for your loved one. May Charles be happy. May Charles be safe. May Charles be healthy. May Charles be at peace. And you see, with the repetition, that becomes the meditation. I think that's just lovely. There's yoga. And I know my stepdaughter loves Yoga with Adriene in YouTube, which are free. Oh, and by the way, going back to meditation, there are a couple of free apps you can get for your smartphone, Headspace and Calm, and they'll walk you through relaxation exercises. Deep breathing, it's a must. You should be doing that all day long, just when you think about it. Take that deep breath in and exhale. It forces your heart rate to come down, your blood pressure to come down, and just kind of get you more grounded. Put some fun in your days. What do you enjoy doing? Reading a book, a hobby, whatever it is, fit it in, even if only for 10 minutes again. Finally, if your attempts at reducing stress are not working and you're struggling to cope, talk to a counselor. Now, if any of you have other, I'm seeing someone already putting them up there. If you have any other ways that you like to handle stress, please type them in the question box, and I'll get to those at the end of the webinar. I also want to mention one of my past webinars was called, I've had it up to here, Coping with Stress While Caregiving. So you can get a lot more on stress by looking at that webinar. Again, I'll show you in YouTube how to find it a little later. Now, let's get to review avoiding infection. This is old hat now, right? We've had a year of this. The 3 W's: wash your hands, watch your distance, wear a mask. Also, cook your meats thoroughly. That's another way that these invaders can get in, and definitely avoid people that are sick. With the virus mutating and getting more contagious, we cannot let our guard down. And my final tip is getting a vaccine, best way to prevent infection. Also, so there's vaccine for COVID that's now out. There's vaccine for flu, shingles. So lots of vaccines to think about. Of course, vaccines for your kids, but I'm talking about you as adults. So Starnbach, the person I mentioned earlier from Harvard Medical School, suggests that the best way to boost our immunity is through vaccines. So if you came on this today to look at how to boost your immunity, here's the golden nugget. We got to get our vaccines. They put our body on high alert for the reappearance of these microorganisms, and it's engineered to fight that. So I hope you will consider that and get those as soon as you can when they're available to you. So these are all the healthy living strategies for a strong immune system. So these are all good ways to stay healthy, which will keep your immune system strong. Now, before I give you my final quote, let's see if I can address any questions you have. Again, there's that question box in your panel to the right. Just type something in there and hit send, and I will watch for your questions. And I do want to say, I see this from Victoria, the gratitude journal. If you are a journaler, or if you would like to try to journal, this is something that people have found to be so very helpful. So keep something by your bed, take some time at night, and think about all the things that you're grateful for. Maybe read it in the morning so you start the day feeling grateful. So Victoria's asking, do you think COVID vaccine is experimental? I do not. I will tell you why. So what is very interesting is that this mRNA that's in the Pfizer, the method used in the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, this is a modality of a vaccine that they have been experimenting with for other diseases. So it's a delivery system. The RNA, that's a delivery system to get to the cells and to kill the COVID. So I think these are things that have been researched for a lot longer than just this year that we're seeing the COVID one developed. There's a lot of research that's been going on for a long time. I also think as you look at the thousands of participants, tens of thousands of participants in these studies that they have been watching very carefully, that also gives me a lot of confidence. And the rate of protection that they're giving, first of all, when I first heard 95% protection with the Pfizer, I thought, oh gosh, okay, now I don't believe the vaccine's good. But then as I listened to how they figured that out and what happened, I thought, wow, no, that is true. So from a scientific standpoint, I think they are pretty safe. Now, we have known that there are some people that have an allergic reaction, I think, to the Pfizer. I'm not sure about the Moderna. So that's why they get the Pfizer. They keep you there an extra 15 minutes to make sure that you don't have that reaction. But other than that, what I'm hearing them say is that they are safe, and I am going to get one as soon as I can. I am 69, and in Maine, right now they're only giving them to people 70 and above. So I'm 1 year off. Hopefully I'll be getting it soon. My 91-year-old mother has gotten her 2 shots. I've got siblings that are in their 60s that are already getting their shots. So I'm certainly think that they're worth it, definitely. And I think you would find these scientists talk about how important they are for herd immunity and things like that. So thank you for that question. And if anybody else has questions, feel free to jot them in. I'm going to wrap the webinar up, but I will keep the question box open so I can answer any last minute questions you might have before we're finished. I want to get to my final quote here. I just want to remind you, the next webinar, you'll get something in that follow-up email with a link. We'll be using Zoom as the platform next time, so it'll be a little bit different way that we do this, but should be similar. Here's the YouTube page. So if you look for Janet Edmondson, you'll see my picture, and then you'll see this whole line. You can keep looking. All of my webinars are there, and they're all free. So take a look and see if there's something that might be of a topic of interest to you. Again, my books are available on my website or on Amazon. And I want to leave you with this final quote from Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power, back in the 1950s, he wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. And he said, you can if you think you can. And I thought about this quote, and I thought, this is especially important for caregivers as we face so many seemingly unsurmountable challenges to stay healthy and to make sure that our immunity is up, that I want you to leave this webinar feeling positive that you can actually do this. It's possible and you can do it. And with that, I want to say thank you. I appreciate you being here tonight. And I'll be getting this recording to you, and you can forward it to anybody else you think might find it of benefit. Feel free to email me. I love to get your emails at janet@affirmyourself.com. With that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you so much for being with us today. Bye-bye.